I will never underestimate the potential the average human being has to be delusional, and myself included. I sometimes self-introspect and ask myself, did I handle that situation justly? Was there any bias whatsoever? So when I watched Deiveson Figueiredo versus Montel Jackson, I gave the last 2 rounds to Jackson. And when I went on Instagram, most people thought Figgy was the rightful winner. So I just assumed that I was probably wrong because it's no coincidence that probably at least 90% of the fans didn't contest the decision. And judging from the replies I received from my Instagram followers, this idea couldn't have been more enforced. Not to mention the cyberbullying I endured because of a comment on an Instagram post. The first guy didn't really cyberbully me, he just told me to never score again. And then one of the guys told me I should off myself. So I was convinced with the way these guys are so confident, they must be onto something. They must think I'm one of those delusional fans that can't accept a loss. But that wasn't the case. I genuinely believed that Montel Jackson was the rightful winner. And I'm not going to remove my comment just because everyone else thinks otherwise. If I genuinely believe it, why should I? But I still decided that it would be wise for me to rewatch the fight and see whether or not my stance would change. So that's exactly what I did, and somehow I still came to the same conclusion. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. Do I think anyone can convince me that I'm wrong? Highly unlikely, because they didn't go to the lengths that I went to make my argument. What is it that I did? I gave the first round to Figgy because Figgy obviously did more damage, landed the hardest strike of the entire round. But in the rounds 2 and 3, the reason why the fans gave it to Figgy goes against the judging criteria, and I think the judging criteria is actually good. I just don't think fights are judged according to it sometimes, and that's what convinces people that it favors wrestling. But truth be told, it doesn't. It favors damage above all things, and you'd be surprised how secondary things like aggression and control time are. It's only considered if and only if the fight is doing equal amount of damage or landing equal amount of significant strikes, which is a very rare occurrence. And going back to round 2, some fans claim that Figgy deserved to win for more than one reason, one of which being the arm triangle he attempted, because if you remember correctly, in the first round, Montel Jackson attempted a 1-2 and Figgy countered it with a takedown. Took him down, got his back, attempted an arm triangle, but it was not deep at all. If you go back and rewatch, I'll place a screenshot, you can see that it's clearly not under Montel Jackson's chin, and he's not struggling. So that does not count as effective grappling. It's like landing a light Ben Askren-esque 1-2 on JDM or Peter Yan's guard. It does little to no damage. In fact, I'd argue that that arm triangle was less significant than that 1-2 I made an example out of. And even in the significant strikes, I made timestamps of every single significant strike landed by both fighters in that round and graded them according to damage. And according to my data, Montel Jackson landed 62% more strikes. Now I know what some of y'all are going to say, Figgy did more damage. To me, he didn't. Figgy landed 1 medium strike and Montel Jackson landed 2. In fact, I'd argue that Montel Jackson potentially landed 3. I graded it as a 0.5, so for the sake of proving to you guys just how unbiased I am, let's just consider that a light strike. The strike that I'm referring to was the stiff jab with 52 seconds remaining. The other medium strikes I'm referring to were the short hooks at 0.17 and 0.5 respectively. The only medium strike I felt Figgy landed in that round was the cross to the body towards the end. Moving on to round 3, Figgy only outlanded him by 1 significant strike, but the difference is Montel Jackson landed the only medium strike of the round, which was the leg kick at 244 that really got Figgy's attention. So at what point does damage outweigh volume and vice versa? Should the round be a draw? I would say yes if their advancing was equal, but who had the center of the octagon? For the most part, it was Montel Jackson. Not to mention he landed a takedown, didn't really do anything with it. But remember what I said in the first round. The only reason I didn't consider Figgy's grappling was because Montel Jackson landed more significant strikes. But in this round, yes, Figgy landed more, but Montel landed a harder strike, the only medium strike of the round. So even if we were to consider the secondary aspects of the judging criteria, if you're referring to my data, Montel Jackson was the rightful winner. I'm not saying I'm 100% right, I'm very open to correction, but I encourage you guys to screenshot this reference, go rewatch the fight, and just maybe you might come to the same conclusion as me. You probably won't, and that's fine. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.